Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of How to Build Your Character in Maya. My name is Brian. If you've been following along now, then your character should look pretty much like this. You'll have one leg and you will have your leg structure in place, and you'll also have the joint system for your spine and your head. So hopefully you guys have followed along, and what we're going to do in this second part, part B of the spine, we are going to be building the control structure for the spine itself. It's very, very simple to do. It's going to be based on all adjustment nodes and simple controls. Okay, so let's get started here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure nothing is selected. I'm going to click off, make sure nothing is selected, and I'm going to say Edit Group, and that's going to create an empty group for me. Make sure that I can see it down there. It's right at the origin. Perfect. I'm going to rename this immediately. I'm going to rename it to adjustment node. It's an adjustment node, and I'm going to call it adjustment root. Okay, and the spine and everything here is already been zeroed out. There's no rotation on any of these joints. They're all set to the world, so they all have zero rotation on them. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to select my magnet here with the dot underneath it, and that means magnet to point. And I'm going to take this adjustment node, and I'm going to move it up. I'm going to drag it. I'm just going to put it right on top of that bone there, right on top of my root bone. Perfect. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off this. It's been renamed. Actually, I'm going to leave that on because I'm going to use it again in a second. I'm going to duplicate this adjustment node right here. I'm going to say Edit. I'm going to say Edit, Duplicate, and it's going to build a new one. I'm going to change this name to Adjustment Pelvis. And we're going to do this for each joint that we actually want to be able to manipulate or move. So we're going to do it for the pelvis, the root, the spines, as well as the head. So I'm going to, with my snap to point on, I'm going to drag this onto the pelvis. Perfect. I'm going to now edit, duplicate it again, and I'm going to change this one here to spine 1. Spine 1. So far, pretty darn easy, right? And the whole thing is pretty easy. We're doing a very simplistic FK rig here. It's going to work out nice for you guys. Edit, duplicate, and spine 2 already. Perfect. We'll put them right there. Okay. We're going to skip the neck because we don't really care about the neck. You could bind everything to either the neck or the head. In my case, I've chosen to bind to the head. Which may have been a mistake now that I'm thinking about it. We might have wanted to bind to the neck. And that's going to give a better movement to the body. So we can bind everything to the head like that. But what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to add the control is actually going to be based on the neck itself. So when I duplicate it this time, edit, duplicate, I'm not going to put it to this bind joint. I'm actually going to set it up to this neck joint, and that's going to allow me to rotate at that point and move from there. So let's call this here adjustment spine, let's call this adjustment neck. Okay, and that's all we're going to need right now for our adjustment nodes. They're all set up, they're all in world space coordinates, which is great, and they're all linked to the bones. Okay, on each of these now we're going to place a control, and the control, I'm just going to use simple circles to start with, and I'll manipulate one of them. I'll manipulate the one at the root joint. So I'm going to say create, and I'm going to say NURBS primitive, and I'm going to say circle. And again, with this sucker right here snapped in place, I'm going to drag it up right onto the root like that. Now, I'm going to make this into a slightly bigger. I'm going to scale this up to, let's say, 3. Is that big enough? No. Scale it up again to 4. That's probably plenty big enough right there. Yeah, that's perfect. And I'm just going to manipulate this one here a little bit so it looks different than the other ones. So I'm going to turn on the control vertices. I'm holding the right mouse button, control vertice, and I'm just going to stretch some of these things out. So this is, oh, and I turn the snap off, otherwise it'll snap. Let's just make this just so it looks slightly different, just like that. Okay? It does not matter. You can make the controls any way you want. Any way you want. It's personal preference for you or your animator, whoever's going to be using this rig. So I'm going to do it exactly like that. That's going to be my root control. So I'm going to select it, say right clicking, I'm holding the right mouse button and saying object mode, select it, and I'm going to rename this thing here to CNT underscore root. Great. That root joint is now in place. And I'm going to now make that same thing. I'm going to say edit, I'm going to say create, NURBS sphere, circle, and I'm going to make this thing here size 4. And with this guy back clicked on, I'm going to move this onto my pelvis. Actually, I'm just going to make it slightly bigger because that may be a little bit too small. Let's make this scale 5. Scale 5. Great. And I'm going to duplicate it. Edit, duplicate. And I'm going to drag it up onto that guy. Edit, duplicate. And I'm going to drag it onto that guy. And I'm going to say edit, duplicate, and I'm going to drag it onto the neck for now. We're going to leave it, oh, that's not the neck. Onto the neck, well, there we go. I'm going to leave it on the neck for a moment. I'm going to show you how to adjust it later on. So let's go through and make sure we rename these because we don't want to screw anything up. And we're going to say, not control vertices, I'm lying to you. We're just going to select it. And we're going to say CNT underscore pelvis, great. And we're going to do the same thing with the spine one. It's going to be called CNT underscore spine 1. And this guy is going to be CNT underscore spine 2. And with this last one we're going to call this in here CNT underscore head, because this is actually our head control. Great. Okay, now, so the reason why I'm going to set up the structure first of all. The first thing I'm going to do is make sure that we're going to open up our outliner, window, outliner, and we'll get a new window popping up. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that each of these things are piled on top of each other. So first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that spine 2 is, well, let's do it like this. I'm going to take spine 2, the control spine 2, and I'm going to middle mouse button and drag it onto spine 2. So it'll appear underneath like this. And I'm going to do the same thing with spine 1, drag it, drop it. Same thing with pelvis, drag it, drop it. Obviously the head, where's my adjustment node? Oh, I call it adjustment neck. I'm going to put it right on there. And control root. I'm just going to go right there. Okay, great. Now, we're going to build the structure. The structure is very easy to build. I'm going to stretch this out so you guys can see it. Everything is built off of the control system, the adjustment root, sorry. Everything's going to be built off there. So I want you to take each one, and I want you to take the adjustment node for the pelvis, and I want you to drag it and drop it under control root. So I middle mouse button, and I dragged it, and I dropped it under control root. I'm going to take spine, I'm going to take the adjustment neck, and I'm going to take it, I'm going to drag it onto control spine. It's control to spine. So all I'm doing is dragging one into the other. Adjustment node for 2, I'm going to drag it and drop it on spine 1. And then spine 1, I'm going to take and I'm going to drag onto control root, just like that. So now we've got this entire system that's been set up. Hello everyone, sorry about that. I am actually home with my baby girls today. I am a father of twin girls, and one of them started screaming out to me, so I had to turn off the video and go and check on her. But she is asleep again, so we're all set. So, where were we? We were setting up the control system. Okay, so the control system is all set up along here. I have just placed one after the other, kind of like in a cascading motion here. And that means that if I, for example, twist the, let's say I take the control spine, let's say I take this first one, and if I rotate it, everything above it follows along. Okay? That's exactly what we want to happen. That's an FK system. So that's what we want to occur. Perfect. Now, what we're going to do now is we are going to set up the control system to allow everything to follow one another. So you saw there that the controls themselves follow each other, but the bones do not. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make sure the bones are following the controls. Animators should never touch a bone. They should never touch a joint. There should be no keys on a joint. If there is, something has gone terribly, terribly wrong. What you want to make sure they're doing is only manipulating your control system that you build. So what we're going to do is let's go down here and we're going to take a look at the pelvis itself. What we're going to do is we're going to take the pelvis, select the pelvis joint as your slave, and your master is the control system here that you want to follow. And what you're going to do is you're going to say constrain, and you're going to want to make sure you shouldn't have to leave your offset off because there's not a whole lot going on here and everything's already been set. Actually, you know what we're going to do first of all? We're going to select each of our joints, select each one like this, and we are going to freeze these to make sure that they modify freeze transformations. Great. So that means they've all been snapped in place and they all have a current value. What happened there? Something happened. I didn't want it to jump like that. This guy, why did he jump? Modify freeze transformations. Great. This one, this one, this one, and this one, and we're going to say modify freeze transformations. Great. Now everything should be set to the scale of 1 and everything should be zeroed out, which is what you want your controls to be. Okay. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go down here and we're going to set up our pelvis joint. So select your master and then your slave. And sorry, I did it backwards. Select your master and then your slave. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say constrain point. You want them to stick together. Make sure maintain offset is clicked on. It shouldn't really matter. They shouldn't be moved. Everything is kind of snapped together. So add. And then I'm going to say, again, constrain and orient. And make sure maintain offset is on. And say add. Now, in this case here, all the joints were zeroed and all the controls were zeroed, so we have no real worries. But now, if I actually move this control, you can see hump, hump, hump. We got some action right there with the hips themselves moving. So that's exactly what we want. Okay, great. We're going to do the same thing with each of the other joints. So again, we want master. I'm going to turn this back on, and we want the slave to be that joint, and we're going to say constrain point, constrain orient. Same thing with this guy, master and slave, constrain point, constrain orient. Same thing with this guy, constrain point, constrain orient. And lastly, we've got this one here. Now, we're going to do it right away. Let's just do it. Master and then the slave, and I'm going to say constrain point, constrain orient. Now, if we take a look, we've got our circle. Let me turn this on so you guys can see it. Shading, smooth shade. We've got our circle kind of in a weird place for this head. I don't want my circle way down there. What I want to do instead is I want to move this circle somewhere up along his head up here so I can actually grab it easier, so your animator can grab it easier. So what you're going to do, let's go shading turned off again. What you're going to do is you're going to select this guy here, the control itself, and you're going to hold on the right mouse button and you're going to say control vertices. And then you're going to select those control vertices. Now, I knew that was going to happen because of the stupid joint. Let's turn off the show joints. Okay, we're going to select our control vertices just like this. We can show them again if you want to see them so you can line them up properly. And I'm going to move these up to this area here. Let's snap it right to our bone. Boom. So now that is in position right there. And in fact, when I take a look at it in our smooth shade, we're going to see that's not exactly how we want it either. So we're going to manipulate this joint. And I'm going to turn this thing off. Sorry, this control. With the control vertices, shading wireframe. And why don't we just square this out so we kind of have a square control. Shoot. So we have a square control. Ugh. I want you, and I want this. So let's square this guy out. Let's take this thing here, and let's take a look at it from the panel's top view so we can see it. Top view. I'm just going to drag these outside of the head like this. I'm just going to do kind of like that. And this one here, I'm going to drag over there with him. I'll manipulate these again afterwards. I know you guys love watching me pull points. Bet you're glad I'm doing it. I'll change these to where I want them later on, but for now we'll just do it like this. And like this. I'm just making this easy to grab for the animator, which is me. I want things to be easy for me. And later on, like I said, we'll make this smaller or bigger as we need. And align it this way. Obviously this is not correctly lined up. I'm gonna put this out. Oops, I'm gonna put this one out here. And I should have had an extra joint or extra thing, and I will show you how to do that too then. If you actually want to rebuild your I have one right here, never mind. Just like that. Okay. Let's put it out here to number 3. I'll drag all these things out like this. And these guys too. So this is pretty ugly as far as the control is concerned. Take your time, make some nice controls. Nice controls always go a long way. Perfect. Anyway, leave it like that for now. If we take a look at in this mode and we say shading smooth shade, that's obviously much easier to grab than the original one was. Go through and change your other controls however you want. I'm probably going to slim this down later so it's not so so huge. There we go. So now that we have all of our things set up, did I set up this one here? I did. Now we have everything set up. If we go back to our wireframe and I move this, you should be able to see everything beneath it twisting, and it's going to twist from the neck, which is what we want. So that's it. It's twisting exactly like that. And the same thing, oops, Control Z. The same thing with all of these guys here. Each one is in turn aligned to each other. And we should be able to, I won't do it like that, we should be able to just take them and twist them and everything should follow along, just like that. So that's exactly what you want to see. That is done perfectly. Okay, everybody? So that is how you do your spine. That is how you do your neck. And if we really wanted to, what we can do now is we can select all of our BN joints. Let's actually just do it like this. I'm going to select this joint. This one, I'm just going to select each one individually rather than I don't want the neck, and I want this guy. I'll just do it like that for now, and I'm going to do something called a junk bind. So the junk bind, and I'm going to select the skin. The junk bind, you go to your skin, and you say bind skin, smooth bind, and go here and make sure that it says bind to selected joints. Good. Close in hierarchy. Great. And say bind skin. And this is going to give us a junk bind actually, to allow us to see how it would kind of move. So now if I twist Terrace's head, oh, that's not in the right spot because it's bound. I didn't bind his head, actually. I only bound his neck. I can bind the head too, which I'll do right now. Actually, I'll just show you the body. I didn't actually bind this thing, that's why it didn't move. But now if I move the body, let's say I go like this, and we move it, we should be able to see the thing move itself. Great. This one and this one should bend the upper body. That's what we want. See how the head's following? This one down here is our pelvis. So if we go like this, boom, 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 it should move the pelvis. So this is just a junk bind. It's obviously not how it's going to work later on. You have to go through and make sure that everything is stuck the way it should be. And lastly, if I move this guy here, the body should move with it. See how the entire legs and everything are moving? Like the entire leg joints? Great. That's exactly what we want. Everything seems to be working perfectly. So everybody, I hope that was helpful. I hope you're following along well. If you have any questions, please let me know. Give me a like in the comment. Give me a like. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions, and take your time and subscribe. Thank you very much, everybody. Have yourselves a great day.